Hello and welcome. Today I'll be showing you guys how to pick your starting territory in Foundation. I'll be giving a walkthrough of my thought process when weighing the pros and cons of different territories. I'll also be using a custom map that I made just for this tutorial, so I'll be leaving the map code in the description in case you would like to use the map yourself. Alright, let's get started. So we're going to start off with this first territory tile piece. As you can see, it's on an island. Now, there's some advantages and disadvantages to starting on an island. The obvious disadvantage is that you're actually cut off from a large landmass, if that makes sense. Your starting area is kind of smaller or constrained, depending on which direction you build in and how it all kind of works out. Another thing to keep in mind when you're building on an island is that when it comes to things like immigration, it's impossible because you do not have any way of allowing new villagers to actually reach your village. Like, you have no access for those people. So something to look out for, or to, think about when you're starting off on an island, if you do decide to choose this route, is that you want to build your bridges as soon as possible, because if you don't build a bridge, you won't be able to get new villagers, and then you'll have a very hard time and not be able to thrive, and you'll never be able to grow your village. So if you are going to start on an island or an isolated piece of land like this, you always want to make sure that you unlock your bridges fairly early. Now, in this case, this tile is not directly next to the water or on the water. We're probably not going to need bridges right away, but it's going to be like the second most important thing once we choose the next tile, assuming that we build toward the shore. Now, the reason why you would want to unlock toward the shore is because presumably you would be closer to fish. You would have closer access to fish. So if we zoom in here, we can actually see that there's a little bit of a fish area here, like a fish resource for us, right? Not all the pieces of water have that. And also you have to keep in mind that cliffs like this are not areas where villagers can like climb down. Like, you would literally need to have a bridge from here to here in order to traverse in this direction. So that's something else to kind of think about and keep in mind. We also have another fishing area here as well, but we're only going to be able to fish in areas where we can acquire the land. So in this case, unless we're able to acquire a piece of land that engulfs this area as our second tile, we won't be able to get our fish until maybe third tile at the latest. So that's just something to think about here. If we go along the shore here and we keep going, you notice that there's like no fish. So this is why you have to check the shores, because if your tile that you've unlocked does not include an area where fish is available, so like this, for example, your fishermen cannot get there. They cannot go and get that fish for you. That's outside of your territory, right? Now, another thing about this particular spot here is that we have a ton of trees all in one area. So if you want to expand up and outward this way, remember, your fish are not available on this side. You would literally have to create some kind of pathway from here all the way over here. Now, mind you, there's also another fishing hole right here, but you can't directly go from here to there because this is too steep of a cliff. Like, these cliffs are way too steep, and your villagers will not be able to traverse down here to get this. So your closest area to enter the water for this would be on this side of the island. So this is the kind of stuff you have to think about when you're starting off in, like an island territory. Another thing to think about here is, it looks like here we have a mineral deposit. Now, whenever you see a cluster of rocks like this, the cluster pieces that are, unidentified or have nothing on them, that's where the nodes will be, and that's where you'll have to create your mining site, basically, and attach it to the rock. So that's how you know like which way the mining site will face. The mining site will be like along this side because the cluster of rocks is over here, right? So in this case, we don't know what's in here, right? This could be rocks, this could be quartz, this could be gold. We have no idea, right? So seeing that we only have that one cluster here, and then seeing that we have multiple pieces of iron, so we have an iron deposit here, we have another iron deposit here, so there's lots and lots of iron on this particular island. and we do have some more berry bushes and things like that. So if we wanted to, we could just kind of look through the trees in the forest a little bit. But yeah, I don't see any other you know, major resources here. So it really depends on what you want to do. So yeah, in this case, the island territory, of course, would be fine, but that's something to kind of weigh and think about. Now, I would recommend if you are going to build near any kind of water or like fish source, and let's say your starting territory actually included a source of fish, it would be a good spot to build like going the church route. And the reason why is because for the church route, you can actually trade fish with the with middle, and middle is like the first trade route that you unlock for the clergy route, essentially. So in that case, it actually makes sense. You can also sell berry brew. So if you have a lot of berry bushes or anything like that, like let's say you don't have access to fish anywhere, but let's say you have like, you know, a tile with a bunch of berry bushes, you might be able to kind of utilize that in a way by creating a tavern and then a little, you know, berry brew, you know, as part of that tavern. And then you can export those materials and you can sell those materials to middle. So that's something to think about. That's just, you know, one little tip there to kind of think ahead of time as far as like what kinds of materials are most advantageous to whatever you're trying to aspire to, and also to whatever particular way you kind of want to play this out. So this tile right here, right, it's very wide and expansive, right? It's a big, wide, oddly shaped tile for sure. But if we take a look, we notice here that there is fish in the water. So we do have access to fish right here. So this tile would be really good for starting early because we do have fish. Now, the bad thing about this tile is that there's not a lot of land area. So what you might end up doing is, despite having a ton of fish, not one, but two fishing holes, it looks like in this one. I mean, this is extraordinary, really, to see this in a tile. Like, you really don't see that a lot. And then to see like a third one just halfway on the edge here, I'm not sure if this would count as part of this tile. It might, I don't know. I would have to test that out, but what's interesting is that, you know, we also have a bunch of berry bushes in here, but we don't have a lot of trees. So of course, with the trade-off here, if we were to acquire a tile like this, yeah, we'd be, you know, basically swamped with food. We would have plenty of food. We'd never go hungry, essentially, right? We would always have rustic food, which is great. However, we wouldn't be able to do a lot of hunting and things like that in this area, because notice there's only like a patch of trees here, and then you have like a whole thing of trees here. So unless you're trying to push over to the edge of the map, which I don't really recommend, I would recommend trying to build in a way that you're pushing toward the center of the map, you know, if anything, at least to get closer. So like in this case, we're like here at the edge, right? And the center of the map is all the way over here. So part of the reason why I would hesitate to kind of, you know, do that is because you have merchants and other things coming to your base. So if you're going to receive, you know, new people, you want to make sure that you're connected to a piece of land that's gonna work out. So in this case, I think because we're at the edge of the map, we might just have like a path directly from the edge to the territory, and that might not be an issue. But yeah, we want to keep these kinds of things in mind just in case. So yeah, this particular territory, it's really, really nice for a starting location, but the trade-off is the trees. So you would have to employ a forester very early on to make sure you never run out of trees before you can get your second territory, essentially. So that's just something that you would have to think about ahead of time. And of course, on the rest of this big piece of land, If we look across here, we have a mineral deposit very, very close. We have no idea what these two are, but because this particular plot is close to these two mineral deposits, I mean, like I said, this could be iron, this could be gold, this could be quartz, this could be, I mean, literally stone. Like, we have no idea. So you don't want to, unless you're going to allow the settings that allow you to see what the deposit actually has as you start the game, because there is a setting for that in the game setup. Unless you're going to make it so you know exactly what the minerals are at these deposits, you want to proceed with caution. Just assume that everything you come across is just stone, right? It's just a stone deposit. So you have to ask yourself, if these both happen to be stone deposits, is this location worth it for me? And I would argue that there's a good chance that it is. I mean, we have an iron deposit here, another iron deposit here, another iron deposit. We have like 3 iron deposits all on this side. So if we were to expand downward and outward, we would have lots of iron. I mean, there's iron deposits everywhere, right? So yeah, the main thing with this particular plot is not only would you need to get a forester in there like very early on to make sure they're planting trees, you would also have to make sure that you have enough land area to place housing without there being an issue with your fishermen's huts. So with your fisherman huts, there's a requirement that requires half of it to be in the body of water. So you put the front half of it in the body of water, and then the back half of it goes to, you know, the land. Now, the thing is, there is a undesirable neighborhood effect whenever you're placing something like a fisher's hut, because basically no one wants to live near that. That is kind of like the idea. It's unappealing for the villagers. So because we have such a restriction on the body of, you know, the part of land that we can build on, we would probably only be putting houses like somewhere over here, maybe away from like the various fishing puddles, like, so maybe like somewhere over here. We'd be putting our housing somewhere back here and away from the water. So that's kind of like something to think about. You know, every tile seems to have, you know, its quirks, its balance things here and there. You know, some are just extraordinarily good, like this particular tile, but you know, the location is not great because you're all the way in the corner of the map essentially, so you don't have the ability to expand all the way around your territory in like an even fashion. You would have to literally just kind of spill out this way, which kind of sucks because as you grow, like if your village gets really big, all of a sudden your whole village is going to be lining the map, right? Which is kind of weird. All right, so here is our other piece of land here. So this particular plot has a bunch of berry bushes, which I mean they all kind of do, right? But it also has a stone deposit right here on the corner. So we know we have our stone deposit here. We know we have a iron deposit just off the shore of that, and if we were to go to the actual shore and cross over here into this woods, we have a ton of trees we can work with. This is probably a very good or ideal location for hunting. So if you want to create those refined foods early on, this could definitely be a very good option for your starting tile. And also don't forget that you can gather boar and berries in order to make military rations later on. So this could actually be a very good location if you're going for the military aspiration or the labor aspiration, because you have, you know, so many trees essentially, and your trees can very much lead to construction at a much higher pace without having to wait for your forester to plant these trees and for those trees to mature and to grow and then collect them. You won't have to wait for any of that. You will have as many trees as you need at your fingertips at the beginning of the game with this location. So this is a good location, I would say, for either a military or a labor route. Not so much for clergy, and the reason why is because you're still off the shore. You're not that close to the water. And if we unpause here and we look at the shore, I do not see a fishing spot that is very close by. So because there's no close by fishing spot, this is not an ideal location, I think, if you're going to focus on clergy early on, or if you're going for the clergy aspiration. See, like our first fishing spot's all the way over here, so that's really, really far from our territory. So yeah, this is probably a better spot for those other two. Okay, so here's another location. This one is not near the water at all. If we were to go this way, this cliff is so steep here that we wouldn't be able to exit off this edge, but we could go through here, and there is a fishing hole here. Now, we're not that far, you know, if we look at distance wise, we're not that far from the shore. Like, we're looking at maybe, let's see, 1, 2, maybe 3 if we're very unlucky. Tile acquisitions or territory acquisitions before we get there, and that could take a little bit of time. And what also makes this a bit tricky is that the acquisitions, you know, would probably be engulfing this mineral deposit at some point, and we would have to go around the minerals in order to place our fishing huts. But in general, I think this is a pretty decent location. So it's not amazing. If these two nodes end up being stone, like, you're kind of screwed. And I'm not gonna lie, like, you're kind of screwed when it comes to deposits, except the fact that you have iron. You have plenty of iron, right? But when we're talking about like early game start and like the best, most advantageous spot, like this is a great early game spot, but as soon as you get into mid game and late game, you're gonna wish that these were like, you know, very valuable deposits, because you don't, like, right now we don't know what that is, and that's one hell of a gamble to take. So yeah, I don't know, like this particular spot kind of like a risky spot. You know, you could strike it big. This could be quartz, this could be gold, you know, maybe you'll get lucky, but it's a gamble. This is one gambly kind of spot to say the least. Here's another location. This location is kind of, you know, doesn't have a lot of trees, right? Like directly inside the borders of it. It has a nice wide open area, so if you want to start off with a bunch of processing buildings and things like that, this might not be a terrible spot. Now the one thing about it is that you're only like maybe you're only one territory away from the shore. Now I'm not sure what the shape of these territories will look like, but based on the curvature of this line, we can only guess really that it'll curve this way. So you would probably have to buy whatever this is next if I were to take a, you know, kind of like an educated guess here. So if we were to buy this next, then we can get to the shore, we can get to the fish, right? So the real question is this spot even worth it, considering the closest fishing spot is just right here? There's not another one over here. Oh wait, there is. Yes, good. There's a second one here. So I guess the question would then be, you know, do we want to start with a, you know, quick access to fish maybe on the second territory? So that's something to kind of consider. It depends on the shape of the territory land piece, because like this wavy part here kind of suggests that this could be, you know, maybe wavy on this side too. I'm not really sure, but you know, we're just kind of taking a guess here. The challenge with this spot is that even though you do have access to lots of hunting and woods and stuff like that, like I think this is a good spot to, like, you know, if you want to focus on kind of like labor and just kind of building and stuff a lot, and, you know, getting different workstations going, this is a decent location. And also you're connected to the outside world through the edge of the map. So eventually people, like villagers, would have to come this way, and you wouldn't have to build a bridge for a very long time. Like you probably wouldn't need to build a bridge unless you like went all the way over here or something and wanted to cross over for some reason, which, I mean, honestly, there's hardly anything here. But yeah, that's kind of like my observation with this particular area. This is another starting location. I don't really like this one too much because it has, you know, this awkward shape isn't, you know, I don't really care too much about the shape of the land per se, like your starting territory, but you kind of have to think about what you're working with, right? And luckily this particular spot is a little bit closer to 2 different nodes here and then like 3 different clusters of nodes here. So this would be a really decent location to start off with if you want to focus on things like smelting, focusing on minerals and stuff with labor. This might not be a terrible spot. You could also technically go the church route with this spot, because if you connect yourself to the water, this would be fine here. So this would probably be really good all-rounder tile. I don't particularly love it though, because on the side here you don't have anything, so like you have like no reason to acquire this tile essentially if you were to pick this spot, which is a shame, because you would only really pick it if you wanted to expand housing or something maybe. So it's kind of, you know, subjective to whatever it is you're trying to build. But what you know, I don't particularly like about this spot is the fact that the shape of it is so narrow on the edges a little bit, to the point where if you're trying to put down some houses or you're trying to designate area for houses, you're kind of cutting off a part of your village. So, you know, proceed with caution. But this, if you play this right, like if you're able to kind of, you know, maybe put the center of your village maybe somewhere like over here or something, and then, you know, kind of focus on getting this woodland stuff out of the way, maybe putting some houses here on this side, or you can put some houses like over here and then maybe put like another cluster of houses on this way. Like you have some options. Like you can maybe make the center housing and then the edges could be workstations. I mean, there's a few different options, but I think that this spot is like way more complicated. I could probably go with this spot and be okay, but just know that you're going to need to wait probably like 1 or 2 tiles before you finally get access to this, and then like maybe another 1 or 2 tiles to get access to all 3 of this. And by the time you expand your territory all the way around here, you probably would not have spent it, you know, going around here, and you're gonna need to build toward here to get fish, because you're gonna run out of rustic food, because you're gonna have all these people mining. And you know, for the mining job you have serfs, so obviously, you know, you want your workstations to correspond with the people working at those workstations, so you get the maximum efficiency of, you know, production for that particular workstation. And in this case, you know, we would have lots and lots of people mining, so we would have lots and lots of serfs. And in that case, we would also want maybe lots and lots of fish to serve the serfs, because the fish deposits give lots of fish, lots of food. So yeah, that's something to think about for that particular location. Let's use this one for an example, right? So this particular tile, as you can see, doesn't really have a lot of trees, right? But it has a lot of surface area. So the good news is that you'll be able to place down housing early without really having to take down any trees. So there is an advantage to doing that. You're also near the edge of the map, so depending on your trade routes and things like that, this could, you know, kind of affect how quickly you get merchants to show up and stuff like that. You know, your immigration factor probably isn't going to be that bad, depending on what direction of the map they happen to be coming in from. This particular tile is not that great in terms of food production, because you're very, very far from large clusters of woods. So for example, like you would have to acquire another tile before you can start hunting, right? Like you literally would not really be able to start hunting here. Your berry bushes are also here in the forest. And the fact that this one is so separated from these two, if you place a forager's hut here, then they're gonna have to reach out to here and here, which can kind of spread out your area a little bit, which isn't really ideal. And on top of that, you also have a stone deposit dead center in the middle of your tile. So you don't want to place a mining camp too close to housing. So, you know, this could be a good spot for like housing on this side and then do work on this side. But the problem with doing that is that all the rest of the woods are on this side, not the other side. So I mean, it really depends on what you want to do. You would need to have an early forester, but compared to the other spots, I don't think this is a very good spot in comparison. You're literally, you know, starting on hard mode for no reason with this tile, in my opinion, considering all the other options that we have at our disposal. Okay, so here's our last territory that we'll be going over. So this particular piece of land is kind of interesting because only one corner of it actually touches the shore. This tile is deceptively good. This is probably one of the worst tiles you could pick for a couple of reasons. One reason is that you're so close to the fish, but it's right outside the range of your territory. So even if you somehow manage to put a fisherman's hut here, which you could not fit because you don't have enough surface area to attach it to the land and then also have it, you know, partially submerged in the water, you simply do not have access to the ocean here. So this is why I think this is deceptively good, because at first glance you would think, oh wow, look, I'm close to the fish, you know, whatever. No, you can't get there. You know, even if you, like, you could technically build a bridge from here to here, like, eventually, right? But you would have to own both pieces of the territory in order to do that. That's something else I should have mentioned as well earlier on when we were talking about the island. But yeah, this space here, that's nothing. You won't be able to do anything there, right? Now, on this side, if you notice, this part of the territory doesn't have ocean access either. You would have to go, you know, obviously there's like a steep cliff here. No one's going to be able to traverse the cliff. So you're going to have to acquire this territory regardless of what shape it is. So now, mind you, we don't have a lot of trees here, right? So if you want any like early access to the water, you would literally have to build this way, and that provides almost no value immediately upon purchase. Like, you would literally just have to have your foresters going wild, just growing this entire forest for you, because you simply just don't have it when you first start. And considering your starting tile has such, you know, few number of trees to begin with, I mean, this is probably one of the worst starting locations you could possibly pick, I think, on this map. So I would say this is definitely my least favorite. And like I said, it's deceptively good because, oh, it's near the water. Yeah, it's near the water, but it's not in the water. You can't get access to this fish outside your territory. You have like no trees if you decide to build this way, right? Or to unlock this way, you have like no trees. If you do decide to go this way, you're not close to a mineral deposit either. You don't see your first big mineral deposit until here, and the little mineral deposits are only iron and stone. So since you don't have access to quartz or gold or, you know, pretty much anything like that, it's not really going to be helpful. I mean, yeah, you can do some hunting, yeah, you can do, you know, some fishing eventually, but even on this side, the earliest you can grab fish would be maybe from this location, depending on the shape of the plot, and there's no guarantee that, you know, whatever is here is going to reach all the way over here. So yeah, this is probably one of the worst locations you could possibly pick, in my opinion, just because you have all these trees that are, you know, I mean, granted, the trees are nice, but they're not in your territory, and you have to think about that when you're starting to expand. Like, what direction do you want to expand in? You know, your immediate benefit, I think, is a little bit more important in the early game than a lot of people realize. So I just wanted to point out this particular territory because of all the different flaws. And like I said, you're not even going to reach this until like probably mid-late game, essentially, by the time you expand out that way, depending on how much gold you even have, right? So yeah, I would say that's definitely not a good location. Anyway, I hope you guys found this helpful. Feel free to ask any questions in the comments below. In case you don't know, my name is SholoQ. I stream 3 times a week on Twitch, Kick, and YouTube, and if you happen to see me live, feel free to stop by and say hello. Please leave a like, share, and subscribe for more Foundation content, and as always, Sholo out.